In a world spinning faster every day, where technology accelerates and headlines blur the lines between fact and fiction, finding your footing takes courage. Welcome to the Character-Driven Life and Leadership Podcast. Meet Coach Dane Deutsch. He is an Air Force veteran who ran advanced military IT and ARPANET operations overseas in the 1980s, giving him a unique, decades-long perspective on today's technological landscape. Today, he's a professional gymnastics coach, teacher, author, and the creator of the Tricycle Effect at the Leadership and Management Development and Character Academy. Dane believes that character is the ultimate foundation that drives your leadership skills, technical skills, your people skills, and your influence. And meet Kurt. With 15 years of experience working as a consultant in West Africa and a rich background in education, Kurt brings a deep understanding of global history, economics, and biblical principles. He provides the historical context and spiritual grounding needed to navigate today's most overwhelming challenges. Together, they tackle the tough topics, from artificial intelligence and digital surveillance to keeping your family grounded. They are on a mission, searching for truth in a world full of lies. So get ready to grow, develop, and shape the kind of leadership that endures. Let's dive in and trike on. Trike on.
So I want to show you this video this morning of Robert Kraft, because he was on this morning, and this is the guy that has set up the Maritime Court in Punta Gorda.
Mm-hmm.
So if you listen to this, he gives you a lot of information in between a lot of the other stuff. Now, this Captain Kyle has been out there, who this actually is part of right here, right? Captain Kyle, wherever it is. He's put out a lot of stuff to expose the deep state in the past. I don't know if you ever heard of him or not. I don't know him. I don't even know what his face looks like. I just know that this blue check mark means that it's been quote unquote authenticated by whoever is claiming to be Captain Kyle. But this says notice of submission as of 28th of July through the First Family Submission Portal, which Donald Trump just set that up recently. You'll hear him talk about that. So he's writing a letter to Donald Trump, Article 2, President of the United States and Commander-in-Chief, and Reverend Paula White, the senior advisor to the Office of Faith for Trump. So this whole thing is he's asking him for an executive order, transferring all county family law and probate courts authority to the Judge Advocate Generals under Article 2, as Article 3, General Law and Equity National Domestic Courts, is referenced by the Organization of American States to align with the Department of War commands. So just in that one paragraph, he went from a civil court to the executive above the civil courts, or holding the civil courts accountable, quote unquote, the judicial branch, right? Mm-hmm. To the Commander-in-Chief hat, down to the Judge Advocate General, and then back to the articles in our Constitution. So interesting that he's saying family law court are the domestic American territory courts in force. Probate courts are the domestic national provincial courts in equity. Now, I don't know what all that means, but it's underneath that it says these are the we the people law trial courts. So let's listen to what he has to say, and stop me if you want to talk about something in between, because there is so much here and so much I don't understand, but I think there's more to it than what people that are watch him that just listen to the surface of what he's saying is different.
What's up, everybody?
Can you hear that okay?
I know it's been a long time. Okay. Lots been going on. If you kept up with my last post. So let me explain what's going on so you guys understand. The American Republic Organization and the Alamo Mission have been registered to file petitions at the Organization of American States. I was given the petition system booklet that I have to go through, and one of the parts in there says that you cannot file a petition until you have gone through the domestic trial courts, domestic judicial process, and received they call it a judgment of last resort. So with that said, I'm starting to ask questions like, well, where's this domestic court system that's attached to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights and the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights? Like,
okay, so just to stop for a second, I think it's interesting that even he is trying to figure out how to unwind this system, right? He doesn't know exactly what the steps are. And so he's getting some help behind the scenes, I think, and you kind of read between the lines as he goes on.
Where is this? And come to find out, which totally makes sense, it is the family law courts. So the family law courts are domestic dispute courts. So the family law courts are not per se family law, but the nuclear family, right? Like Iran's nuclear weapon. They can't have a nuclear weapon because the Ayatollah has been mouthing off for 47 years. And the domestic courts are not a weapon of last resort or a nuclear weapon. And that's the correlation for the family unit. Okay? So technically, under international human rights law, the Inter-American Court of Human Rights is supposed to be in alignment as a hemispherical petition process in alignment with Southern Command and Northern Command to the Family Law Domestic Dispute Court, and that's actually your contract enforcement court. And the probate courts are actually your national equity courts, law courts.
So just stopping right there, Northern Command and Southern Command. He just pops that in there. So we're talking about civil courts, and all of a sudden we jump over to military. And that these law courts, these family law courts, are underneath Northern Command and Southern Command, if I understood what he was saying correctly. So I don't know how that correlates exactly, but that was one of the thoughts that came in my mind when we were going through here, because he like deposits these little spots with military.
So that's it. So the family law is an American in-force territory court on the North American continent, and the probate court is a national equity court in the province for abatement. That's what probate means. It means provincial abatement, right? Where they disperse equity. So everyone's been asking where the law courts are. Does anyone notice that you don't elect a family court judge and you don't elect a family law court judge, nor do you elect a probate judge? Nope. Those are the courts that are supposed to have judge advocate generals. So those are the...
So now he's saying that there's no one holding them responsible. They're not elected by the people, and they're supposed to have the judge advocate general above them, which is interesting. I mean, if you're talking about separation of executive powers from the executive and the judicial branch versus the legislative branch, those three, but then you have Trump's commander-in-chief hat with its own chain of command. And so anybody would have a difficult time trying to put those two together, right? The military side with the civil courts or these family courts, right?
Courts that determine guardianship. They can declare someone incapacitated, disabled. They can take military pay right out of the military with divorce agreements and child support. That's it. Like, that is the court in force. They can issue restraining orders. Like, they can screw your entire life up. And they have. And the reason they have is because the American Bar Association has been in charge of the most powerful territorial and provincial courts in the United States of America. So a petition of prayer was sent in to the Article 2 President and Commander-in-Chief and the Office of Faith. As petitioning member to the Organization of American States at the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, we are requesting an executive order to have the special limited jurisdiction family law courts and equity court, or general law and equity courts under Article 3, which are the family law court and the probate court, transferred to the Judge Advocate Generals for the U.S. military.
So now he's saying that all these, what we call family courts and probate courts, are all going to go underneath the Adjutant General. So they can be transferred underneath the military. So that's very interesting. And he has to go to Trump as the commander-in-chief and the person that he has in charge of his faith thing, right?
Because that is where election fraud is prosecuted. That is where failure to perform oaths is prosecuted. That is where political corruption is prosecuted. That is where the data centers are going to be, where those courts are moved to, so that they can be prosecuted under human rights law for war crimes.
There you go. That ties the dots together I was talking about before. That the data centers really aren't data centers. And those guys that are out there that have built data centers and built prisons are saying it's more like a prison than a data center. And that makes perfect sense with what he's saying. But he's an international lawyer. He's not part of bar. So I have no way of knowing if what he's saying is true or not. He's an international lawyer. He's not part of bar. How do we discern what he's saying here? It's not like you can just make this stuff up. He's talking about these articles and the trial courts from the family and the probate and all that. If they put them underneath the Judge Advocate General, just like we're seeing Fauci and all these other things right now, what else can happen then? Because he's saying politicians and, you know, people in office and all that kind of thing. I have to listen to this many more times to really understand what's going on, because I'm not a lawyer, but that's a little weird that he mentions the data centers, don't you think?
I mean, it makes sense to me. I think they're trying to fast track a lot of these convictions. And how do you do that? Well, he's asking for an executive order.
Yeah.
And with that executive order, it gives you power for the military to fast track this stuff. Because I don't think we really understand the whole judicial system. You know, it varies a lot by state.
Right.
I know a friend of mine who's a judge in Texas, and you know, he had to make these decisions on divorces and childcare and all this sort of thing. And the first thing he would say to the couple is, "Hey, you may want to go outside and work this out, because when I make a decision, it's going to be final about, you know, your finances, where your kids are, whatever. So I'm going to give you one last chance to work this out in the hallway before I make a decision." And 9 times out of 10, they worked it out, because they realized that, hey, maybe we don't want somebody we don't know to make life decisions for us. So I think what he's saying makes a lot of sense, because the system right now, the judicial system, is so flawed. I mean, look at how these district judges, when Trump would have an executive order, how they'd come out and say, "Hey, you can't do tariffs." Well, why would a guy from Missouri, a district judge, have that kind of power? So you've got to take that power away. So, no, I'm all for that.
Military is the only way.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that he's referring this to the first family, but he's asking for an executive order. Once that executive order goes in place, and the Judge Advocate General is above all of these courts, my guess is those judges are going to be traded out with all those 600 judge advocates, JAG, that got sworn in. And how many of these data centers are out here? They're people that are local, that are not listening to the people, right?
Mhm.
That are doing whatever they want to do, are being told by someone else that this is how you're going to vote on it,
Right.
fluoride or whatever it is, data centers and so forth. Politicians. Last night they were saying 200 congressmen had taken ivermectin during the 2020, but never told anyone. I think those are the things that are starting to unravel to help
Mhm.
us see the full depth of the corruption and evil that was actually there.
Right.
Now, the thing about this is, and I think it's interesting that you brought this out, because you're going to hear him say he's been divorced twice, and he gives you an example of the second time with the civil court judge. So
I said 6 years ago, we don't have a court. I spent 17 years fighting in family law courts, and I went head to head in my second divorce with a conspiring judge, ex-wife, and their attorney committing all kinds of human rights crimes. Come to find out, they were acting as a cartel entity. Judge Mary Evans, I have on videotape saying, "I take children away from families," as a domestic terrorist and a domestic enemy.
So interesting that he's calling her a domestic terrorist and a domestic enemy, because we've seen other Trump videos that refer to domestic terrorists. Most people think it means some terrorist that sneaks in across the border.
Mhm.
But what he's really saying here is some of these domestic terrorists are amongst our own, right? Is that what you're hearing?
Yeah, and the other thing that, when you have your children, you have that birth certificate, and really the reason the government says we can do whatever we want to do with your children is because they own us with
Yeah.
that birth certificate. So the other thing is, we paid our taxes Tuesday at the courthouse, and a group of FFTS people were outside, and they said, "Oh, Kurt and Barb, you're coming to pay your taxes." Yeah, yeah. So we all kind of paid our taxes, went outside and talked, and it's like, we really don't own our homes. We don't own this.
Yep, that's right.
And, every week in the paper, I see where the sheriff is having an auction on homes every week
Farms. Yeah.
because people haven't paid their property tax. I mean, it's unconstitutional, is what it is.
Yep. So I think understanding what the bar is, and understanding that this guy's an international lawyer and he's set up this maritime court, and that we're talking about territories here, right? The provincial, territories that he talked about earlier, that the family court is really a provincial court
Mm-hmm.
and in a territory, which is interesting because that almost means it's not underneath our control as the people in the republic, right?
Right.
So it's not like we have the state again. It's going back to like the real idea. I mean, somebody else is issuing that or proving it or whatever. Yeah, they printed at the DMV up here, but it's still given by this organization out of France. So how much other stuff have we given away without knowing that it was going to impact us? And I think the birth certificate is a good example of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a video this week of Trump telling someone, "Are you an American citizen?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Then you're going to be very happy very quickly. You're going to be very rich."
Mm-hmm.
This is like before he boarded a plane or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So he's basically telling him, don't complain because you're going to be very happy soon.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that it's interesting to see how all of these things are coming together. And what he's saying here kind of pulls a lot of these dots and connects them for me.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I don't understand everything he's saying, maybe we're not supposed to. I don't know. The other thing I think is interesting, he's not afraid to come here and say this on video, right?
Committing war crimes for human rights. Just how many children has she taken away from people? We're going to find out. Along with all the other conspiring law enforcement. But we're going to find out through getting them dosed and having the military step in. So,
Okay, so did you hear what he said? I thought originally when I listened to this, he said dozed, but what he said is doged.
And the difference is?
I think what he means by that is that they're using AI to discover the corruption that's behind the scenes, just like Elon Musk brought Doge in to the government at the highest levels. They're using Doge now to ferret out all this corruption at the lower levels as well.
Yeah, you don't hear much about it anymore, do you?
No. So I think that's what they're doing now behind the scenes is they are uncovering all this corruption at local levels too, because several other posts talk about local, state, and federal, not just federal. So the fluoride question or the fluoride vote, the fluoride referendum in Ladysmith was a good example of this. The people voted for no fluoride,
Right.
but the council reversed it. That's the kind of thing that he's calling a crime against the people. Because you did not represent your people. You did whatever you were told to do by somebody that told you to vote for fluoride. This week, for the first time, I saw a post on the fact that fluoride, when it is introduced to electromagnetic frequencies, causes it like exacerbates it in terms of poison in your body. I'd never heard that correlation, but it makes sense to me because there are other things that electromagnetic frequencies going through your body can also exacerbate, right? So when he said doged, I thought it wasn't dozed, it was, or like bulldozed, right? It was doged. And that means that they're ferreting out that corruption, I think. So let's listen to that one more time.
Along with all the other conspiring law enforcement, but we're going to find out through getting them doged and having the military step in.
So what he's saying there is, and I think this is also very interesting, there are lots of posts that are talking about law enforcement buying up military vehicles and other armament. What he's saying here is law enforcement is going to be replaced by the military because they're corrupt. So you're going to have law enforcement replaced by the military. We saw, if you read between the lines, and there's arguments going on, debate going on about what was meant by that document that we talked about last time in terms of these data centers being military installations. So another dot might connect there, because if the data center truly is going to be the court and the holding cells for this insurmountable number of people, then knowing that the data center is that holding spot makes sense, right? Because then you have the judge advocate general, the law enforcement, local law enforcement was moved out, the military came in, they've got control of the data center. Now the question is, why couldn't they just take over the United States in martial law, which I've watched lots and lots of posts on this over the years since 2020 saying we will have martial law. Are they really going to be for us, the people? Or is this a ruse to fake us into believing that, and then we let it happen? Those are the thoughts. I'm just thinking out loud here now, Kurt, okay?
Right.
I don't know what to think overall. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out connecting these dots. To me, just like that one AI guy who had built AI data centers, he said, and other people that I know that are in AI, they're saying we don't need this number of data centers, no matter what. And I totally agree with that. And these data centers are being put out in the middle of nowhere, which is not easy to be able to run a data center in the first place. So even if there are bots running it, it's still going to require a lot of manpower. And the expertise isn't in all those areas to be able to provide that kind of manpower. So is it really possible that what he's saying with this being the courts being territorial, that when he asked for this executive order, all of a sudden in a flip of a signature on a piece of paper, this whole thing could flip in a heartbeat? So
Letter will be going out today, officially, to the first family, because this is family law. And when you're in family law, you got to talk to the first family. Thank Mr. Trump, or President Trump, for setting up the page that actually tells you how to contact the first family, the first nuclear family in America. And we're gonna get it done.
So what does that mean? Trump set up a page?
Yeah, I don't understand that.
My understanding is there's a website, in other words, that was set up to have a vehicle to actually talk to the first family or submit your concerns to the first family. So beyond that, I have no idea. Just the fact that he set, and he thanks President Trump for that, but I don't know if he hadn't put that page up, would Robert have known how to submit this stuff? I don't know.
Well,
I'm saying there was no way to submit anything.
Well, I think it's interesting to hear from insiders that Trump does check his text messages and he responds to his text messages. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Instead of going through a press secretary, he does it personally.
That's what Lincoln used to do.
What's that?
That's what Lincoln used to do.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have text messages those days, but he would let people come right into the White House. There was no fence around the White House. And sometimes people would come in or he would actually invite them in to talk about some kind of problem they had.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you're being available to your people, right? You are supposed to be serving.
So, but yeah, when you're asking them if they're a law court, if you're not in a family law court, and you're not in a probate court, you're not in a law court. You're in a corporate for-profit court, and they're running the family law and probate courts as for-profit. And that's the enemy occupation. So God bless, Godspeed.
So we've heard Trump and others talk about enemy occupation. We're thinking it's these people that came in as illegal immigrants. I would have no idea that it was these territorial courts, the family court and the probate court, that are the enemy occupation, because the bar is running them instead of the adjutant general, as he's saying the Constitution calls for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, this just opens up a whole wide world of how are we going to get elections corrected? How are we going to get the corruption on the courts corrected? The legislators and people that are supposed to be representing us on the councils and all of that corrected? That all appears to me that it could get corrected underneath what he's doing. And Trump will put the military in those positions to get it done.
Well, and that's what's happened with Minneapolis and DC, where the local police officers have been pushed to the side, and you've got the military that came in and put order into the cities.
All right, you've been listening to the Character Driven Life and Leadership Podcast with Coach Dane, training and coaching leaders to grow with character first. Leadership isn't about the titles, it's about trust. And when you lead with character, your people skills and technical skills follow, and your leadership impact multiplies. Subscribe, share, and connect with me here at lmdc.us to keep growing you in leadership and life with character at the foundation. Until next time, love, live, lead, and trike on.